What's going on, YouTube? JT's Reborn here, and welcome to day 10. Yeah, 10? Yeah, episode 10 of my Marvel Rewatch. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Ooga Shaka, Ooga Ooga, I can't stop this feeling. Alright, I'm not going to sing it. Hooked on a Feeling. Great fucking song. Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, so Guardians of the Galaxy. When this movie came out in 2014, it was the biggest risk that Marvel had ever put together. A lot of people were unsure if this was going to be the one that was going to really just take off, but surprisingly enough, Guardians of the Galaxy, in essence, kind of became one of their biggest franchises within the MCU. Like, obviously, I'd say Iron Man was probably top pedal, and then Captain America's franchise, because of the sequels, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of tough to think about. But Guardians of the Galaxy is the one that kind of surprised everybody and really, really took off. Guardians of the Galaxy took the world by storm. James Gunn directed it, then he directed the second one, then he got fired for the third one, now he's back again. There's that whole debacle, but we won't get into that, even though I kind of just did. But whatever. So Guardians of the Galaxy came out. A lot of people loved it. People were going gaga over this movie. They looked at it as the second coming of Christ, basically. And it happened. And I enjoyed the movie. However, I think it's a bit overrated. I mean, that's not to say it isn't good. It's definitely a good movie. But the best MCU movie, people can view that, but I completely disagree with it. I think Guardians of the Galaxy is probably the most overrated film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's definitely good. I think the cast is great. Chris Pratt, this is the first time I'd ever seen Chris Pratt in a movie before. He was fantastic. Dave Bautista, who I know from his pro wrestling background, as Drax the Destroyer, was great. Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon. Zoe Saldana as Gamora. And then you have Vin Diesel used perfectly, just saying the words, "I am Groot." And there's a lot of funny stuff in this movie. Oh, you also have Michael Rooker as Yondu, Damon Hansu as that other guy. Then you have Ronan, and then you also get a bit of Thanos in this movie. Finally, he actually talks because Josh Brolin had been cast in the role, and I love Thanos in Infinity War, but like in Guardians of the Galaxy, I was kind of nervous because his one or two little scenes were so lackluster, and I was like, ooh, is this going to be the main villain? He's not really doing much for me. I don't know what it was. Maybe even the writing or the timing or Roland's performance hadn't really been refined yet, but Thanos in Guardians of the Galaxy is kind of just okay and just sort of there. You don't really feel him as imposing or intimidating. Not until that opening of Infinity War. That's when he really takes off and becomes one of the greatest comic book villains of all time. But anyway, so Guardians of the Galaxy, they're after this MacGuffin, this orb or whatever. It turns out to be one of the Infinity Stones, and we get a little bit of teases here and there. Benicio del Toro, they pretty much everyone's after this MacGuffin, after Peter Quill. And Ronan's after it. He's this bad guy, this blue-faced dude who hates the Xandar, who's a Kree dude. It's just kind of a bit, so-so. But the Guardians come together, and the Guardians are great. I think when the Guardians are on screen, the movie works. When they're not on screen, it's a definite no for me. And then there's Nebula, who's also Gamora's half-sister. See, my thoughts are kind of rambled right now because I just rewatched the movie, and I like the movie. I definitely do, but I feel like once they head to nowhere and Ronan takes hold of the orb and, it turns out to be an Infinity Stone, that's where the movie really loses me, because that's kind of when there's, like, when we get to that point, there's like an hour left of nonsense. I don't think the action sequences are very good in this film. That last bit really, really drags, and I'm kind of like, I kind of just doze off a bit, like whenever I kind of watch that bit. I'm in it in the beginning when you see Star-Lord going around dancing, and he's just like, hey, 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 come and get your, and he's playing Come and Get Your Love, and he's just going around like, oh, I didn't expect the movie to go in this direction, but I was kind of loving it then. And I like when the Guardians are just kind of just sitting around talking with each other. I think some of that stuff is very fun. The movie visually is a gorgeous looking movie. In terms of visuals, it's like, like the way space looks and everything, it looks great. The villain, Ronan, sucks ass. He's one of the worst Marvel Cinematic Universe villains. He's so forgettable, so boring. The only bit I liked is kind of at the very end of the movie, where he's just like this really generic, boring villain. And then Star-Lord just starts his infamous dance-off, which completely caught me off guard. I was laughing hysterically in the theater. Because Chris Pratt's really, really funny in this role. Like, this is the role that put him on the map. I know he's got some Parks and Recs fans, but most mainstream audiences didn't know who he was. I didn't know who he was. Dude did Guardians, then he did Jurassic World, and he did Lego Movie. Like, it was like 2014 to 15 was like, the birth of Chris Pratt. Like, it was just like he just kind of exploded into popularity. And then 2016, obviously, he did his things. Then he came back for Guardians, then Infinity War, and he's going to be in Endgame. But yeah, this is like the movie that put Chris Pratt on the map. Obviously, Zoe Saldana had been in a lot of things. I mean, come to think of it, Zoe Saldana, like, how many big franchises has she been in? Like, if you want a franchise to make money, I'd recommend putting Zoe Saldana. She's kind of like a good luck charm, and she's good. Like, I always like Zoe Saldana when she shows up and things. Even though I'm not a big fan of the movie Avatar, I think she's good in that. I think she's good in Star Trek, and I think she's good in this. And there's another movie like Colombiana or The Losers. I kind of liked her in those too. So I like Zoe Saldana. She's pretty good. And Dave Bautista, like, his delivery, he really surprised me in the movie because I know Batista from WWE. I've seen a lot of his range, and he kind of he took off a bit too, and he started like starring in all these different movies. He went and appeared in Spectre afterwards, and he did Blade Runner, and he's doing Dune next. So Dave Bautista as Drax, it was honestly perfect casting for him. Like, some actors, they're not the best of all time, but there's certain roles that they can pull off, and Dave Bautista pulls off Drax really well. I also love Rocket Raccoon. Bradley Cooper as the voice of him is fantastic. It's a great choice. There's some really, like I said, there's some really, really funny stuff with him where he's just like, Drax is talking about, like, I kind of forgot about this part until I rewatched it, where he's just talking to him, and he's just like, Drax is like, he killed my family, and then Rocket's like, oh, boo-hoo, my family died, where? And I laughed hysterically. It's such an asshole thing to say, but it's really, really funny. But yeah, the Guardians are outlaws. They're kind of criminal. They're all criminals in their own way. Kind of a little bit of slime balls. They're not necessarily goody goods, and that's what I kind of like about the Guardians in this film. And it's cool to see them come together. There's some good emotional payoff with Peter Quill. However, like like I said, the third act and the villain really drag this movie down for me. When the Guardians are on screen, I'm enjoying it, but I feel like after Ronan gets the Infinity Stone, the movie just drags. It just takes forever because there's like practically an hour still left in the movie at that point, and it's like the third act, and I'm like, this just drags on, and like you got these battles and stuff going on, and it's really kind of lackluster. The dance off was pretty clever at the end, but it just felt kind of like a lot of this stuff was just set up for obviously what they're doing with Infinity War. This is where the movies really started to feel, I mean, there was still setup, so like this one felt like, okay, we're setting up the Infinity Stones, we're setting this all up for later on down the line. And I just really liked the stuff with the Guardians coming together. I felt like that was pretty strong. This movie lacked a good villain, and I feel like that really hurt it. Most of the humor works pretty well. I think there's maybe only a few bits that don't really land for me, but overall, I still think Guardians of the Galaxy is a good movie. Is it the best in the MCU? Absolutely not. I think, like I said, that third act really drags for me. It's still a good movie. It's better than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It's just a solid one. It's a solid flick. Most people genuinely like it, and I like it too. Like I said, just the villain and that third act, really the second half of the movie just kind of really just bogs down for me, the pacing, and I really do start to lose interest a bit. Other things to talk about, the soundtrack is great. Obviously, the Awesome Mix Volume 1, and then they did the Awesome Mix Volume 2, which was the second movie. It's cool to see the team come together, and eventually they're going to meet the Avengers and Avengers Infinity War, and it's going to be fun. So we'll get to that when we get to that, and it'd be a few years before the Guardians would return in Volume 2, but Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, it's a solid movie. Not too many major complaints. I think it's just a bit overrated villain. I know I've repeated myself several times, but I just think some bits of it's just not really clicking for me per se. But I want to know your thoughts down below. I'm pretty sure most people are going to be like, what, you don't just automatically love Guardians of the Galaxy? I'm like, I like it. I just don't love it. And that was kind of evidenced on my rewatching of it. In terms of Phase 2 movies, it's the second best movie of Phase 2. Second or third, I got to rewatch Ant-Man and see what I think of that one, because I genuinely like the first Ant-Man movie. Like, I think that's one where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really into this one. But this one, it's definitely up there for the one of the top spots in Phase 2. I still think Winter Soldier is probably the one I like the most. That's a little bit more my cup of tea. But Guardians, it's a good one. It's good space adventure, fun stuff, beautifully shot. Action's kind of weak, villains lackluster, back half really drags down. But I still think people are going to generally come away really satisfied with this movie. So go ahead and post your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think of Guardians of the Galaxy. And comment, like, subscribe. Come back tomorrow as we take a look at the hotly anticipated Avengers Age of Ultron, the sequel that had so much hype behind it, including for me. And, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time. Have a good day. Take care now. Bye-bye then.